Hey you guys, what's up? Dorothea here again with a special guest, Benjamin. How are you today?
Good. It's the weekend.
It is the weekend. It's the freaking weekend. Getting our wood pile ready. Lots of work to be had. But I wanted to take some time to sit down with you and ask you a question and kind of get both of our perspectives on a subject that I think will interest a lot of you guys. This was actually a recommended topic from you guys on my Instagram. If you're not following me on there, go ahead and give me a follow. Same name as my channel, Dorothea __V. But a lot of you guys want to know, what is it really like to be an immigrant in the US? And of course, both Ben and I were born and raised in the United States. We're not first generation immigrants. You could argue that our families were, of course, because the only true Americans of North America are the Native Americans, which we're not. But as Americans by birth, we have some things to say about it, about how we see immigrants personally. Of course, our view isn't everyone's view collectively, but we also have seen a lot and have some experience on the subject since we've lived here for the majority of our lives. Ben, as you know, the majority of my audience is Brazilian, living in Brazil, although a lot of you guys also live outside of Brazil, whether that's in the US or somewhere else. But for those of you who've perhaps never traveled outside of Brazil and you're curious to know more of what it would be like to move to the United States, how you'd be treated both from a citizen's point of view and from the government, how the government would see you, what would you have to say to them first and foremost?
One is speaking English. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
I guess it depends on which area you choose to go to. There's a lot of areas where you can't find someone that speaks English, but for the majority of the area in the United States, people choose as the first language English, and most people only know English here in the United States, so they wouldn't understand you either way.
I'm American, I speak American.
Secondly, Americans aren't attuned with culture like the rest of the world. They tend not to appreciate other people's cultures, and even if they do appreciate it, they a lot of them share the idea that it belongs in another part of the world,
Right.
not here. I wouldn't say I'm like that, but I know a lot of people who are like that. So
You've worked a lot with immigrants as well in your job as a carpenter.
I've worked for immigrants, I've worked with immigrants, and I have employed immigrants, illegal and legal.
How would you classify the average immigrant who has either worked for you or worked alongside you? Do you think they're hard workers? Do you think they're motivated?
Oh, they had to have been hard workers, otherwise I would have never met them.
Like, more so, you think they have a higher level of motivation than the average American citizen?
Right. I can't say that would be true for them for where they come from, but I'm sure that them being somewhere where they have to make something of themselves, it gives them that motivation. Or at least all the ones that I know of.
Right. Go ahead and specify which, people from which countries are you most familiar with?
Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduran.
Okay, so most of the Central American area. Not so much Brazilian, although we did have a Brazilian neighbor when we lived in Florida.
I've lived in Florida like that much of my life, though.
Right. But he was cool. He was a nice guy.
Uh-huh.
He'd come out and share a beer with us on the porch. He was a nice guy. He spoke perfect English. He'd been in the U.S. for like 18 years. You've traveled abroad, outside of the United States, that is to say, and I'm curious as to how that experience changed your view of people coming into the U.S. for the first time.
I wouldn't say that it changed my view of it. It more or less gave me better perspective of why someone would want to come to the U.S. Whenever you see places that people are born into hell and all they want to do is escape and make something for themselves, Some people just do it for better opportunity, but some of the things that I've seen made me realize that, how can you think that this land or this area or this opportunity is explicitly for you, It's a shared world. We all live in it, and people just want what's best for themselves and their families and for the future generations.
I'm curious what your idea of the American dream is. If you think it's dead, if you think it's not, if you think it's worth chasing, if you think it's automatic, when you come here, or if you're born here? I think I already know what you're going to say, but go ahead.
The American dream, it exists for people who create new ideas and new things and have the type of mentality to where they believe that the world could use this, or the world can use that, or I can do this for the world that no one else can. And you have that idea that no one else does. Yeah, there's a dream here waiting for you in America if you know the right people. But for the average run-of-the-mill American who's born here on this soil, if you want to have anything, you have to work hard. You have to work all the time. It's not lavish.
Do you think that, speaking to my Brazilian audience, if the average Brazilian were to come and start over in the U.S., say, and say goodbye, part ways with their country, which I'm sure they love, but they want to find a new opportunity here in the United States, what do you think would be their biggest obstacles that they would confront?
It largely depends on what area they choose to go to and what they intend to do as an occupation. That has a lot to do with it. But if you're asking me, an average person coming here to do something relatively average, I would say that the biggest obstacle would have to be suppressing your own expression, culturally related expression. I'm not saying everybody, but I would say 6 out of 10 people would misrepresent you if you were to show national pride. Well, why are you here? You know, or why, if you love your country so much, why are you here? Why don't you go back home? You know?
Yeah.
And it's just the reality of it.
How would you say the United States government treats their immigrants? Speaking today in 2020, how it's relevant.
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it: legal immigrant, illegal immigrant. Well, either way, the government hates you because you're going to make them money, and they're going to tax the hell out of you, and they're going to charge you a lot just to live here. And even if you are legal, you may not get taxed or whatever, but you don't qualify for health care, and you can't have a credit score, you can't own anything, nothing can be put in your name, you can't legally drive, etc., etc. So either way you look at it, depends on what you want out of it.
Right. What do you think when we hear things on the news about, like, oh, all these criminals coming into the U.S., all of these murders and rapists and bad people coming in, we have to block the borders? What does that make you think?
Well, criminals move, just like everyone else. There's criminals that flee the U.S. that go to other countries to flee persecution and justice. Why would anyone expect criminals in other places not to do the same and come here?
Right. It's not like they're exclusive, like immigrants are exclusively bad people or something.
Right. Some people see it that way, but if you use logic, there's only one conclusion you can come to, and that's criminals exist, and you can't legislate criminals out of the world. There's people in parts of the world who have gifts to offer to other parts of the world and can, but are barred from doing it under the guise of we're preventing criminals from doing this or that, or we're keeping you safe, which isn't the case.
The more I started to travel and expand my horizons, the more I just didn't see borders. Like, I would go from one country to the next, especially in Europe, because every country is kind of more like a state. Like, it's really easy to go, from Germany to Austria to Italy to Spain, like just around. And you go to these different places, and everyone has their national pride and their own language, perhaps, and everything like that. But the more I traveled, the more I was like, okay, I understand that borders are important to distinguish certain areas of the world, but why? Why is it that we can't all just live where we want to live, There's always hoops to jump through. There's always a process, legislation, bureaucracy, paperwork, passports. Like, it's always this process.
And it's always to make people feel like they're safe.
Right. Like, we're protecting you from the outside. But what is the outside? The outside is the world. The whole world is the world. So I don't know. Bringing it back to the subject here of immigration, if you are a Brazilian or from another country and you're looking towards the U.S. as this bright, shiny paradise of a place, I always like to say this. I've made other videos about this as well on my channel, trying to lift the veil somewhat to people who don't know Because if you don't know, you don't know. If you've only lived in one place, you can see movies and TV shows and fantasize and imagine what it would be like. But until you actually come here and start over, you don't know. You just don't know. It's just something, it's like coming of age or some type, it's a thing that you can't know until you go through it.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I think most of it has to do is with the mentality of the person considering it, because thoughts create action, action creates change. The more bright you see the future, the brighter the future will be.
I like that. I like that. I think that it's important for anyone from Brazil coming to the U.S. to recognize that not everyone, in fact, the majority, dare I say, of the people that you'll meet here in the U.S. will not know and will not respect, basically from a state of ignorance, of their own fault or not, you can argue, but they won't know a lot about where you came from. You have to teach them about your country, your culture, if they're receptive, if they even want to hear about it. If not, then you're going to be fighting against the grain, trying to create your own little mini Brazil within the United States. So, as I had to do when I was in Brazil, I had to adapt myself. And I wanted to. I was willing to. I wanted to. I love Brazil. I was like, yes, let's do this. I'm going to learn Portuguese. I'm going to do what the Brazilians do. What advice would you give to someone who is newly immigrated to the U.S. and has confronted racism or prejudices with the Americans that they've met?
I say this to a lot of people in a bunch of different circumstances, but a smile can disarm someone quicker than trying to argue with them about something. You know, some of the best people I've worked along, we couldn't speak to each other. You know, we made hand gestures, you know, and we would call the screw gun the pistola, or, you know, he would, you know, hand signals and gestures go a long way. And I'm saying that irregardless of whether you speak the same language or not, because even if you don't speak the same language and you don't understand, then you have the feeling somebody might be prejudiced towards you. A smile goes a long way. That's all I really have to say about that. I can go on and on about it, but
yeah.
There's so many different types of circumstances that could bring someone to think, oh, well, this is racism or this is prejudice, but it happens all the time, you know. You may think something's prejudice, but it's not, because happens all the time with me in traffic, me and another white man with black hair, you know. we hate each other.
Yeah, right.
He's in the wrong lane.
Road rage.
Right. So
I agree with that, and I think that anyone who is spewing off racism, racist speech, slanderish words, or offensive phrases, whatever. If you're getting attacked, or if you feel like you're getting attacked while you're here, I think it's a good thing to remember that is coming from a place of fear. The Americans who would treat you badly, who would not receive you well in this country, they're just insecure.
If you ever get that vibe from someone, don't ever work for them. Don't work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Find something else to do, because it's not worth the time, and it'll end up causing you more harm than it would good.
Right. And the reality is that those people do exist here and everywhere. Mm-hmm. And you will find them or they will find you. You'll have instances where you are confronted in a tense situation with someone who just doesn't like you because of where you're from. And unfortunately that happens. But I think it's important to remember that that's not personal to you. It's not like they know you. It's not like they're coming after you. It's coming from a place in their mind of hate and discrimination. And I think it's really coming from a place of feeling threatened, which is ironic because, you know, this argument that, immigrants are taking our jobs. And it's like,
but they always do the jobs that no one here wants to do.
Exactly. It's like those jobs are here, and a lot of them are taken by people who aren't originally from this country. And we need to thank those people, because they are like the bread and butter, the backbone of this country, supporting other growth in other industries. There's a place for everyone, you know. I feel forever grateful for how I was received in Brazil, and whenever I encounter an immigrant, be them Brazilian or from any other country here in my country, I try and receive them with that same type of respect and warmth, really, of just being like, wow, you're brave. Like, it takes a lot of courage to just leave everything you know, your family, your friends, your customs, everything and come to a new place, and legally or illegally, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's scary. It really is to move. There is a level of adventure and excitement, and then there's also the unknown. All right, well, I hope you guys like this video. Thank you so much for coming on with me and sharing your opinions. I hope you guys enjoyed Benjamin here. I hope to
I'm supposed to be working right now.
I know. I took him away from his wood cutting to help me with this video. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram, like I said. Follow me on here. Subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. It all helps me out. We're working on your channel. I know it's been talked about.
Wait, did we make it?
No.
Nope.
Nope. But we're brewing. We're brewing with the ideas. It's like, oh man, so much to do. But stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys later.
Beijos.
Beijos.